Hello everyone, this is Mr. Eldridge, and of course today we're talking about, in Lesson 1.1, Pre-Columbian Natives, Life Before European Contact for Native Americans in what we know today as the United States, North America, and South America. We're going to use a phrase, just traditional American Indians, called Native Americans, called Indigenous peoples, are believed to have crossed from Siberia to Alaska via a frozen land bridge roughly about 20,000 years ago. And I can say this, one thing that you want to be clear of as you are doing research is when you come across someone that says, we know definitively that so many years ago, it's very difficult to say we know definitively. Roughly 20,000 years ago, there are other estimates, but I wanted to make that clear. As you are doing research, as you are learning more about American history, you need to make sure that you understand the complications that are here in regards to American history, in regards to everything that we will be discussing. So, American Indians then settled into what we know today as North America, as well as migrating south through Central and South America. American Indian cultures varied as tribes adopted various lifestyles to suit their environmental needs. One of the staple crops was that of maize, corn, if you will, which was domesticated in southern Mexico roughly about 10,000 years ago. From there, maize spread to the Andes in Colombia region through roughly about 6,000 years ago, while Olmec and Mayan civilizations are going to develop trade routes, brought it into what we know today as the American Southwest, roughly around 2500 BCE. But when we look at the regional differences here between these Native American tribes, and we look at the differences between, per se, the Northwest Pacific and Californian coast Native Americans, you know, though that region of modern-day Oregon, modern-day California, that area, they were able to live in semi-permanent settlements, primarily from the sea, and from, you know, lush, coniferous rainforest. In the area known as the Great Basin region, American Indians are going to establish seasonal settlements near river basins in the spring and winter, while moving frequently in the summer due to the lack of water resources. The cultures of the American Midwest and the East Coast, they were more intricately connected through this Mississippi Valley trade network. There's going to be goods from the Gulf of Mexico, Rocky Mountains, Northeast Great Lakes, Great Plains, and Atlantic Coast. They were all found in one centralized location for a trade center that we call Cahokia today. Modern-day St. Louis, if you will. And then additionally, American Indians formed large confederacies, and of course, the largest and one of the most significant was, of course, the Iroquois Confederacy, to expand and protect resources and trade. So as this trade is being developed and through the years, we start to see the development of the need and the want of exploration. With the decline of the Silk Road following the end of the Mongolian Empire in the 14th century, as well as strained relations with Muslims in the Middle East, Europeans were left without a connection to the lucrative markets in India and in China. And so, beginning with the Portuguese and the Spanish, European explorers in the late 15th century began exploring new routes. They started looking into what's often referred to as royal patrons, the funding of these trade trips, if you will. And so these royal patrons, such as like Henry the Navigator of Portugal, Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain, served as these patrons. You start to see later English and Dutch explorers funding their expeditions using a joint stock company. Now, these companies were established as a corporation, if you will, a separate legal entity. To reduce personal liability, stockholders, these investors, if you will, within these companies were repaid in proportion to their investment. I.e., if you pay 10% of a voyage or a company, then you would receive 10% of the profits. And so these investors further protect themselves by investing in multiple voyages rather than putting all of their funds into a single voyage. This made funding new voyages much easier and was more profitable for investors. We're also going to see technological advancements as we move forward in the exploration into what we're going to refer to as the New World. You're going to see Europeans not being able to be as successful without these new innovations, these new inventions, refining navigation and innovation technologies. The refinement of these previous technologies, such as like a true north compass, an astrolabe, if you will, helped Europeans to accurately plot direction and location using the Earth's magnetic field and stars respectively. Regarding transport, new maneuverable ships called caravels, along with the stern post rudder, modifications for better steering, you start to see these new technologies, these new creations allow for more nimble navigation and larger carrying capacities. You additionally see the discovery of consistent wind patterns, specifically the trade winds and westerlies, allowed Europeans to sail to and from the New World easily and more reliably. And so, to be able to chart all of these new territories out, you start to see the use of portolan maps. You start to see a more reliable and accurate mapping technique that Europeans could use to re-navigate the seas. You also see, new innovations and new technologies, but you also see things like gunpowder weapons. This is going to be big in the trade aspect as we start to see the advancement of the Columbian Exchange and also the advancement of the institution and the trading of African slaves as well. And so all of this is going to be a part of this new exploration and the motivation to explore. And so it is often referred to as the 3 G's when we talk about the motivation to explore. It is God, it is gold, and it is glory. And so first, you have the God motivation, if you will. Christian missionaries who were mostly Catholic, many of them, and when we talk about this, we're mostly talking about Spain, but they were eager to spread the Christian faith to the American Indians and this population in the New World. They often established Dominican and Franciscan mission and settlements in the New World. Some of the first ones are going to be, or first major ones are going to be in what we know today as the American Southwest. And so you start to see this motivation, and many European settlers and missionaries are going to go in, and many times you're going to see a conversion, but much of this conversion is going to be done by force. And so these Europeans that came over, you're going to have 2 different categories. You're going to have individuals like Juan Sepulveda. And Sepulveda was firmly in favor of forced conversion, but he was also in favor of, if there's not a forced conversion, that there should be consequences for not converting to the Christian faith. Then you have other people like Bartolome de las Casas. And de las Casas spoke out against the mistreatment of American Indians. Specifically, he was speaking out about Christopher Columbus and Columbus's treatment towards these Native Americans. And so the idea of these motivations. Number one is God. The next one is gold. Many Europeans sought riches in the form of precious metals, land, and conquest, viewing the New World as a largely untouched promised land. But you are also going to see, as a part of this, you're going to see how if there was no production, Native Americans would be turned into encomiendas. And we're going to talk about that in our next lesson. The idea that they're going to be, and the phrase that we often use, is enslaved. They had to pay tribute, if you will, towards these Spaniards in order to keep them alive. And then finally, you're going to see the glory aspect. New colonies offered an opportunity to expand increasingly powerful European states. Bring pride, bring glory back to the European state, whatever country that it was referring to. These wealthy landowners, these lower nobility individuals that were putting the money back into these trips were expecting a return, and these new colonies throughout the New World. Thank you so much for paying attention to this lesson. Make sure if you've not hit that subscribe button, please subscribe to this channel. We look forward to the next lesson, lesson 1.2. Thank you so much. Have a great day.